That's what the House and the Senate do. They screw up people's plans all the time. Not bitter. Everything is awesome.
Never happened to you, though. You say, hey, guys, I'm going to be here, rain or shine, don't worry.
Never happens to me.
Good morning, I'm Anna Palmer.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchbowl News. It's Friday, January 30th, 2026, TGIF. Let's get into the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number one, we've got the latest on government funding. Can the Senate get a deal? That's the big question. Number two, Speaker Johnson's new headache. And number three, Cotton's PAC's readout on ICE and immigration enforcement. All right, Jake, let's get into it. Of course, all eyes are on the Senate and this deal that is being negotiated. There was potentially thought that a vote could happen last night. That did not. We've got one of Trump's biggest allies, Lindsey Graham, pumping the brakes a little bit here.
Yeah, the White House and Senate Democrats had an agreement on a CR for DHS, Department of Homeland Security, for 2 weeks, basically until the President's Day recess in February, because who doesn't like putting a deadline against a recess to screw up people's plans? Because that's what the House and the Senate do. They screw up people's plans all the time. Not bitter. Everything is awesome.
Never happened to you, though. You say, hey, guys, I'm going to be here, rain or shine, don't
Never
worry.
happens to me. Never happens to me. I always, whatever. I always put my life first. And the agreement also would have allowed the House and Senate to pass the 5 spending bills that passed with large bipartisan majorities, through the end of September. That was on I don't know about a glide path, but it was on some sort of path, a very twisty path. Lindsey Graham is pissed off. Why is he pissed off? Because the DHS spending bill, since it's a CR, would keep in place the House-passed measure that would repeals the ability for senators to sue the government if they were surveilled by the government. Lindsey Graham could have sued for millions of dollars. He was surveilled by the government. I think he's going to back off. Why do I think he's going to back off?
I mean, it's a lonely number of one who's really sticking to this. That's a tough position to be in.
I think I have to look this up, but I think last week, the House repealed this provision unanimously because it allows senators to sue the government for millions of dollars. Okay, the funding runs out at midnight tonight. We're already going into a funding lapse over the weekend. The administration has, not just this administration, any administration, the Obama administration, the Biden administration, every administration has the ability to not shut down the government if legislation is moving through Congress, right? OMB has that power to say, we're not going to put the government into shutdown if a bill is moving. I think this would qualify. The House is going to come back most likely Monday. There's a call this morning at 11 a.m. for House Republicans. The Senate is convening at 11 a.m. also to try to clear the funding package, but they need consent, or they need an agreement with 100 senators, and it would take a few days to pass the measure. I want to talk about why this deal is tough for the Senate, but why don't you? Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I always have thoughts, but you're steamrolling through this morning.
Yeah.
No, I mean, listen, I think the big thing here is they got to figure out this. This is just step one of what becomes a much more, which we can get into what you want to talk about, right? Which becomes a much more complicated process, right? I do think you got to give them, besides this Lindsey Graham hang up, I mean, they have been able to move very fast in the Senate with the White House working together, kind of both sides understanding the changing political dynamic. Very important, right? As a first step. But this major gamble that Democrats have taken, I mean, the next phase gets really complicated when it comes to what is actually going to be in a DHS bill, the idea, and I know you and I talked about this on Flyout Day yesterday, just 2 weeks is really like no time when it comes to legislative text, when it comes to getting through the Senate, when it comes to all of these things. And we're going to get into the House, but I mean, it becomes really, really tricky.
Yes. 2 weeks is, if you just think about it from an actual, timing point of view, is that you need a deal like now to get something through in 2 weeks. The Senate is going to take a week just to move anything. And the House is going to take a couple days to move anything. And, Democratic hardliners are unhappy over the party's failure to secure legislative win during the last shutdown fight, are already framing the DHS clash as a chance to prove to voters Democrats won't back down. They are going to want, especially with everything going on with ICE, they are going to want airtight stuff here over warrants and body cameras and masks and all the other things that they are demanding. And on the other side of the equation, Republicans are saying that they support, some Republicans, Rick Scott, Eric Schmidt, are saying, no, we support ICE. We support what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not put our law enforcement officers, this is what they're saying, not me, just clarifying that. Let's not put them in a bind. Let's not tie their hands here.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric Schmidt said, I'll tell you this, we're not legislating stupid and then a 4-letter word. I know this is a family podcast. Many families are listening over their breakfasts.
When things get loose, we hear about it. So I appreciate
right.
that, keeping it friendly for the kids.
Yeah. Schmidt said, we're not telling federal agents they need judicial warrants when they already have administrative warrants. Some of these ideas that the Democrats are floating out there are terrible. Anna, here's a prediction for you. We're going to get to February 12th, 13th, whenever this thing is up, and they're not going to have a deal. I just don't think they're going to have a deal. And they need a deal well in advance of that. But everyone I talked to in the House and Senate over the last couple of days just says the administration is going to have to do huge work. And the administration realizes that. They say they're going to lean in. The president's going to lean in. They're going to have to really, really lean in here.
And also, Democrats are going to have to keep that urgency up, right? The further you get away from the horrific shooting, and if things tamper down and ICE starts to remove itself from Minnesota, from Maine, from all these other flashpoints, I think that's going to be the challenge also on the other side, right?
Yeah.
Keeping that pressure up and keeping the pressure on Republicans and the Trump administration to say, you guys got to do something here.
That's right.
All right, Jake, let's move on to the number 2 story of the morning. Speaker Mike Johnson and the House Republican leadership have 2 major hurdles to overcome next month. First, probably next week, the House GOP leaders will have to figure out how to pass both the massive 5-bill fiscal year 2026 spending package and the separate stopgap DHS funding bill. No small task. And then if there's an agreement over the overhaul to the Department of Homeland Security, man, Johnson is going to have a very, very tough time getting that through the House.
Okay, let's talk first about next week, Anna. There was some talk about bringing them back Sunday. I don't think that's going to happen because it's Friday and people are all over the world, and even people from the West Coast. It's just too hard to get people back by Sunday. Maybe they come back Monday morning. I don't know. We'll see what happens on this call this morning. The main headline here is House Democrats have a lot of cards because we talked about this on Flyout Day. This deal on the CR, this whole process is a deal between Chuck Schumer and the White House, not between Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and the White House. If they need House Democrats' help to pass this, there might be a cost. We'll have to see. I mean, maybe there won't be, but there might be a cost. And if they do it on suspension of the rules, which I don't think they're going to do, they could, but they don't like to do appropriations bills on suspension for a lot of reasons. Although they just did it last week, so I don't know. They keep saying they don't like it, but they liked it enough to do it last week. If they need a rule, they could need Democrats. I mean, I don't know what kind of mood people are going to be in when they return. So that's a big hurdle. Number 2, there are going to be a lot of people in the House, a lot of Republicans in the House, talk about Republicans first, who just say, we don't want anything to do with DHS. Mm-hmm. And by the way, if we do an overhaul to the DHS spending bill, there are things that I want. And that's conservative speaking. We want no money for sanctuary cities. We want to change visa policy. So the DHS bill, remember, it was a negotiated package. It was a compromise for all involved. And Democrats are going to also likewise going to hold this deal to, where Democrats intended it to go. So it's going to be tough, Anna.
I mean, no doubt about it. Such a slim majority for Speaker Mike Johnson to have to deal with. And, I think more than anything, we have seen the Trump administration and the president's sway over individual members of the House on specific instances. The question is going to be, can he still have that amount of power? And, the House it starts to look a lot like the Senate, where parochial issues or different things, every single House member now has a vote, right? In a way that he can't afford to lose anybody. And that's a really hard thing. I mean, we're also going to have to see a test for this leadership team of Johnson, Emmer, Scalise. Can they work together? Can they figure it out? Because we've seen over time a lot of challenges, even to get bills that should have been non-controversial or maybe not brought up because they don't have the votes. This is one of those ones that they are going to need to have this real tight and real locked up. All right, let's move to the number 3 story of the morning. We've got some new polling from Senator Tom Cotton's PAC showing that a plurality of Americans want ICE to tone it down, but they continue to support deportations. This is impactful because it showcases where some Republicans are when it comes to what the role ICE should have, and also the impact that Republicans could see this having in the November election, Jake.
Interestingly enough, 78% of respondents agree the government should deport immigrants who are in the country illegally and have criminal records. 56% say they support deporting people who are in the country illegally and arrived within the last 4 years. The Biden administration, 52% want to deport all illegal immigrants. So this shows there is widespread support for getting rid of undocumented immigrants. But the poll also showed that 41%, a plurality in the poll, want ICE's tactics to be toned down and to avoid unnecessary harm and confrontation. I just think that's very interesting. I mean, they want this stuff to continue, the underlying policy. They just want everybody to tone it down in ICE. And that's kind of what the administration is betting, right? That the underlying policy is sound in their view, but ICE needs to not do what it's doing.
We shall see. All right. That was a presentation that Cotton gave to Senate Republicans. We'll have to see if that messaging continues to be where they are aligned, especially with the Trump administration as they try to de-escalate, a word that we've heard a lot this week. All right, Jake, thanks so much for listening, everybody. We appreciate it. If you like the Daily Punch, share it on social media, tell your friends. Please sign up for our free morning newsletter at punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.